This one's working now. I believe it stays on.
Well, that's, yeah, she sent me a copy.
And then we have to get another relay for one for that, a receiver for that table, but I think it came the other day, or was that the mic that's on the rack PC? There's a box on the rack PC. Yeah.
How about that? Working on a client for it about blew off what time it was, working with the dining room table, and it's like, oh shit, I better get home. I don't know, they sort of remind me, apparently I think my phone's underneath all this paperwork that I've been working on. So. Oh, but this week's done.
How soon you are planning? I don't need a voice vote to bring in some motion.
No, this, the only vote will have to be for.
He's pretty much wild, but he's pretty much going against the grain of the organization on this taxation stuff. Just hear me out, we're good about turning it through. University, I think, my God.
We discussed
that. Yeah, you know, all that back.
I'm against taxation. They just raise assessed values.
We discussed that.
Either pay Paul.
We discussed that.
Constantly increasing, they're addicted to taxes.
They do.
Need to wean themselves off.
Did Alan share that since he was there?
That's a fun little one.
Mr. Mulder.
I didn't get a note that I was supposed to pick you up. I remember it. Yeah. We needed an ink pen up here. Ink pens. Oh, I got it. Give me a hard time that there wasn't a pen up here. It's so long, so. Placing the sheets.
Yes,
Yeah, the water.
the water and sewer sheets should have either Thursday or Friday's date on the most recent ones.
So I can just throw it up.
Yep.
All right.
The date on those should be 3/28/25 at 8:04 AM.
Most of Saturday, watch the basketball games and study the agenda. Basketball's out. Yeah, ever since Iowa State lost, it's over. for me. My brackets look like crap.
Before the tournament started, I bet on Houston to win it all. I'm still in the running.
Yeah.
They had pretty good odds on it.
That's the only one of several brackets that I have a chance at. I've got three of the number ones to get there. I thought St. John's, a little bit better. Arkansas, I've been that long. Should have seen it when I came in, it was just two of them.
It was between 6 and 7 to 1 odds, so. Like 680 to 1. So. Yeah, I didn't bet a fortune on it, but. Just something to.
The most recent water and sewer pages are dated,
Yeah, that's these ones, but.
Yeah.
It goes in your book.
it replaces the water
In
and
the
sewer
book.
page in the book.
Okay, got it. Yeah, the CIP is all one tab, and then if you didn't bring your book in, those little
So yeah, it's all one tab and the rest.
Yep.
This, it's, realize on the night.
What time should we be open?
Keep looking at those chairs, they look like something from Starship Enterprise or something.
I was gonna throw last night, but I didn't get home till 8.
Pretty excited that we finally have reasonable, more comfortable chairs instead of mismatch. Maybe
Are they comfortable? There.
more people will show up and
They should have got beer holders with them, huh? I was just gonna say.
we can extend
Oh, yeah, we
our
should have
meetings.
those.
Yeah, right. Or have more, yeah.
Theater seats will be the next
So
round.
you got any front stools or anything to go with them that you can take back or? Yeah, no.
Theater seats, the reclining theater seats.
I think
are the next ones.
I got home tonight, before I got home tonight, my neighbor texted me 3 times. How you doing? What do you know? Good. I said, I'm working on the plan. So I texted him, I said, I want to take my kids. Let us go see my. I pulled the driveway, I get my phone out. I said, what do you look at? We look at her kitchen, see that? I said, what do you think? Yeah. You got that, you did tile backsplashes. Yes. Not actually tile, but that's. Sorry. Now we use,
I just saw.
we got granite. The counter. So the back of it, I used.
Yeah.
And so I wanted to see what it's like.
We're gonna carry it better to 6 and originally 5, so it'll probably be a year.
Shit, that's all you need.
Shit, man, for some planes and stuff, but it's a civilian car, then you'll get it in comparison. I'll tell you what, how about you know, you get it for a year, you get it back, you get it, so like.
That's. He worked in spots.
Yeah.
So he's the one.
That would be good. So strange.
I'll do that.
Oh my god, that's awful. Yeah. I hate it.
Yeah. I got some of them when I couldn't see about her.
No, the rehab, whatever, yeah. Well, they were just.
What I do is I put the hamburger that I got, that's kind of blocked. And then I'll put it. I'll put it in the grinder and I'll put cheese in it, so it just mixes it together and then make a burger patty. That makes it real tasty too.
They don't realize it's good, you can't get it.
I gotta buy it, they're gonna have sure when my wife.
I know.
is.
And this is
I think she's.
Oh, okay. Oh, shit.
That's my
Yeah,
thought.
it's a great time, they let you do something.
Yeah.
That's what I think she told me, she's telling, I got paperwork at home somewhere if I need to find it. But I've been too busy. even- I'm sure she told me something along the line, but I just really didn't listen.
He's got a deadline.
But I know she went home. He doesn't last night. It's pretty good indication she's not first. She went somewhere. But I've just been too busy the day before. So I'll worry tomorrow.
Freaking maniacal.
We can't get any occupancy on that.
Better start working before she comes home and I didn't realize.
It's just they can't occupy it for a year. Each thing that he's gonna start May first. We've heard that May first. The plans are done, they're just waiting for a couple permits.
Well, they're doing that second road. They're doing grading on that second road out towards 60. The one that's gonna turn out. Yeah.
That's.
South
is around.
So why is it changing?
Roundabouts back south.
But when I work in, I know, I
So he
can't.
pulled the tractor out there excited, I haven't seen it move in 3 days.
They were out there great when I went by yesterday, what is it today?
Yeah.
Maybe it's yesterday.
So are the chairs still comfortable?
Well, they were doing something on the road.
I love them both ways. This is a treat. Some of these may
But I
make
did
it in
get
my
out.
office, you know what I mean?
Ask them a question.
So now we can have one on the back wall, right?
I like these.
We decided we could extend them out. He's all the one, right?
Yeah, so now you have permission to do longer meetings. That's not.
So he can watch. Go up to 3 or 4 hours.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Pass.
that wasn't my vote. I told Dave.
You ready, Barb? All right. I think we're ready. The time is 6 o'clock. And we are here for the capital improvement plan work session. So do we we don't need anything to get started, do we? Yeah, we do? Okay. So we need to call the meeting to order
Mulder,
here.
Etcher,
Here.
Rigler,
Here.
Roberts, here, Murphy.
Here. And we are live, being recorded too. So if we have any, comments, we want to make sure we're using our mics and come to the podium if if the audience has anything. So let's get started. Item number 1 on the work session is FY 25-26 capital improvement plan. Dave, Barb, do you want to go through that?
Sure. So the first thing you're going to see up here is a graph that just kind of lays out our plans for 2026. This is, even though it says 2026, we want you to know that that is fiscal year 2026. Also, so that you are aware, if we had a project that involves streets, water, and wastewater, that was put into public works, not just streets, not just water, not just wastewater. So when you see things that say streets, those are projects that are specifically to the streets department.
On your date, can I clarify a date for you real quick? When you say fiscal year, just to clarify that we are July 1st, 2025 to June 30, 2026.
That is correct.
Not so, just want to clarify.
So the next few pages are just kind of a summary of the projects, and you can see we've got 26 and 27 on here because we have started doing a few projects towards 2027. That's a summary, and then the next few pages you're going to see these are the projects detailed. For instance, the Oak Street lift or the Oak Lift Station gives you a description of what that project entails. Tells you how much we're anticipating spending and where those funds are going to come from. So I believe there's one on each page in case you wanted to make notes on those. And then at the very end are the funding sources and uses so that you can see typically the name of the fund is going to tell you what's in that fund. But on some of these, especially the reserve funds, we've noted this is the local option tax contribution in there for fiscal year 25 and the local option contribution for fiscal year 26. So you can see that we're putting local option into the reserve funds to use for future projects.
And if you recall, the reason that we're using the local option tax dollars is based on the ballot language that was approved a number of years ago. The auditors reminded us when I got here that we needed to be able to show that 80%, at least 80% of those funds were being used for property tax relief. And when we asked him if this was a acceptable use, he said that was probably one of the best uses to use it for. So that's why we kind of switched that over the last couple of years.
You'll also see on your monthly financials that these reserve funds are all separate funds from the regular operating funds, so that those dollars that are in there stay in there and don't revert back to the general fund pot at the end of the year.
That's what I was going to clarify. So you are actually allocating these, or will be allocating the funds to these, or the revenues to these funds as we go along, that they are in separate funds earmarked for these particular projects.
That is also correct.
I'm just assuming too that the department heads is their priorities. That's normally what we do.
Yes, that's also correct. We did switch out. We had 3 public works projects slated for 2026. And one of those was going to eat up quite a bit of the water reserve, so we did kind of switch some of those around. So we have 2 projects in 2026 and 1 project in 2027 for the street, sewer and water.
Any other questions or discussions?
So I got a question on the parks. I noticed that the trails were up there on the Centennial area. And I brought this up ever since I came on. We have Centennial Park that has no paved parking lot. It continues to be brought along without being done. We have both east and west parking on that, which is both gravel. That's probably one of our most used parks, and we're still doing more trails than we are finishing that park.
The parking lots are one of the things, you know, I told you that that's something that I'd like to see done in the next couple of years. Trails, we're actually allocating, I think it's 50,000 a year to go towards trails, because we've got the next big piece of trail after we complete the North 69. The rest of the 69 trail that is proposed for the master trail plans in excess of about $500,000, which the hope is we will go back to secure some more funds through CERPA for a large chunk of that, and then have our matching dollars. But there's still quite a bit of the master trail plan that was designed or was put together, Jeff, 5 years ago, maybe. It's probably been out, that plan. I think it was adopted by the city council. So we're trying to allocate some funds to do some trail at least every couple years. But that parking lot project that'll be a larger project that'll kind of fall in line, kind of like the public. It won't be as big as the public works building or the fire station, but it's probably a project that's going to be I mean, I had heard an estimate of over $1 million to pave both of those for the number of spaces that we're
So-
going to do.
So the asphalt
I don't know.
company,
That's just what I heard, Greg. When
what
I
was,
got here.
what was the asphalt company's name, Jeff? Yes. So we had a bid probably a year or so ago of $100,000 to asphalt that thing. That was the east part. The oldest parking lot.
Okay.
So, and that was when Rita was here. Again, this is, I've got an issue with this because we put this off and we put this off. And this is one of our parks that is most used, and we still have a gravelled area. Well, how do I want to say this? Like if a business put a business up now, they wouldn't be allowed to put in a gravel parking lot. It would have to either be asphalt or paved. And this thing has been there since the early 80, the park, and we have not paved the parking lot. The parking lot across the street, the park, it's paved. And it still is not big enough to hold when we have the soccer areas. My personal thing on this is waiting a year or two for the paving of the parking lot is out of line when we're putting that much money into trails that the trails aren't being used as much as those parking lots are.
Yeah, I'll piggyback a little bit on that because I think we paved back a certain spot, right? Because gravel was getting drug out of there onto the road. So I think Rita paved back part of it. I haven't been out there for a while, but yeah,
We did
on the
a
west.
portion of that just off of Sycamore there, because of we just did between those houses. because of
Yeah.
dust control. Very much, but it was enough to get just the back of the property, so those people didn't have to keep that dust all the time. Yeah, so it's just kind of part of the line, not really part, you know, just the drive there.
I don't know, where I thought we had a bid and it wasn't that much. We'd even talked about dumping some kind of material in there that would it would turn into a parking lot. I apologize for not knowing exactly what I'm talking about. I don't know if it's leftover asphalt.
I'm assuming you were looking at millings, maybe asphalt millings, maybe to start a base.
Okay.
Staff or something, like that, putting all that stuff up there.
How long ago did Inwoods give you that quote for the parking lot? And
Excuse me, I just want to remind that we're being recorded and they can't hear us on the mic unless we use the microphone. And I apologize, Jeff, but could I ask you to step to the mic when we talk about that? Thanks.
It's hard to say. Is it on? Oh, yep. I think it's been a couple years, 2 years ago, maybe somewhere, maybe going on now, maybe two. Yeah.
It was still when Rita was here, we
Yeah.
had the bids.
It was, yeah, we looked at that. There's still, one of the things too, like most of the parks still have, especially Centennial, you always see those concrete coming off the streets between houses. It's never been, that was supposed to be formally attached to the whole system so people could walk it all. And those probably, that's been there since day one too. And we still have a connection out there. I think we've shown that map, the one going out to the park out there for bike trail or the, you know, trail park out there too. We got an easement on that too, that we need to probably get in one day too, you know, to get people to that park out there from Sand Cherry. So there are some of those fill-ins too, that's been there for years that we've never completed yet either.
So the bid, when we did get it originally, it was a couple of years ago, was they said the compactment was probably already pretty much there. And they were just gonna do the overlay with the asphalt. And that's why the bid was so low. So we wouldn't had to have that extra work, and I'm sure the compactment's still there. But if we had to do concrete, yeah, it would be a whole different story. It'd be, but again, I'm just, when I seen this, I've got a hard problem with this because we keep adding to the trails when we're not finishing what we already started and what we have in place.
Aren't the majority of this trail though this year done by grant money? For what we're looking at?
Well, Dave just said we're putting in $50,000 a year.
well, that was kind of what we were looking to do, was to take some local option tax and just earmark some money each year to start putting away so we could continue to do trails. It could be, I mean, really, was that just a trail account or was that park
No,
account in general?
Trails is separate from parks.
Okay. So, yeah, we were looking to,
Maybe we could earmark some both ways, or at least move that up on the.
yeah,
I'm
I
with
mean,
Roy, I'd
I
move
would
it
like
up.
to go back and find that big, because I know it was, I mean, I'm just starting year 3, so it would had to have been, I don't know if you got that right before I came to town, or if it would have been in the spring or summer of 22.
I think it was just addressed because people were concerned about walking across, you know, all the traffic that was up there. And
Yeah,
I think part of it was too, is that we weren't maximizing the parking lot because you can't stripe it, you know what I mean? If we thought we'd get some hard surface down, it could be concrete too. I mean, it was just, at that time, we were getting some bids just to see what that cost would be, so. So we could entertain both products, but
yeah.
it was just getting some lines on there, so, cause you get people that pulling that gravel, I mean, it's all over the place, it's a mess, we gotta grade it, and then they just park like whatever, so you're probably getting 2/3 of cars you could probably get in there if you had it parked, you know, paved, but. So.
Yeah, I mean,
help
I
with all
think
the-
we could certainly, you know, go look, I mean, asphalt would definitely be cheaper than doing the concrete. Concrete, you're probably gonna do curb and gutter, you're gonna,
That's the hard part is some people don't do fair comparisons. If it's concrete, we're gonna add curb and gutter, we're gonna do this, we're gonna
but
make
you may
that,
still do,
catch me out.
but you
And
may still do some
yeah.
curb and gutter on asphalt.
So I
yeah.
guess,
But I had originally heard, and I want to say I heard it from I think Heather, that they were looking to do both those parking lots, and if they concrete them, they were gonna be close to $1 million is what I was told.
I could see if you're curb and guttering and the whole works, that
So.
would really jack up the price on it.
Yeah, I think that west parking lot, when it was, I think B and K put something together, it was pretty massive amount of money, so.
I
but-
tend to agree with Rory here. You know, we seem to have a double standard in a lot of areas. I know that was when we talked about the sidewalk infills in the last time. Here, the city owned properties that we didn't even have sidewalks on as a city, and then we were expecting everybody else to put sidewalks in. And here's the same thing when we're requiring hard surface lots, paving on all new businesses and this kind of stuff. And we have these, we've graduated to a higher level city that probably should have paved parking lots in our parks. That's my opinion. I don't think it's mutually exclusive of, and no offense to anyone that's in this room, that's my opinion of, I don't think it's mutually exclusive. We have to have trails or we have to have paved parking lots. I think we need to have both, right? And they're both part of our plan for the future, and we need to figure out a way to budget for that.
That's my problem with it is it seems like we have a double standard. And the other problem is, like I said here, when we talked about the splash pad and we said that we had to have the parking lot for that because we didn't want the double standards and so forth. And I think at that time, Dave, you said, you know, because I brought it up then, that why are we doing this when we haven't even finished the Centennial Park? And I think at that time, we talked about TIF money for the parking lot. And I don't care what it is, but I think this is just my opinion as one council member, is that we need to finish that park. I mean, it's probably one of our oldest parks and it's probably one of our most used parks. And we need to finish that completely before we're starting to invest in other areas.
We'll certainly take that comment and we'll see what we can get put together to see how we price it. I will let you folks know though that that's one of the things that the legislature is starting to look at, is they may not mess with property taxes, but they may start messing with TIF. And it's going to take a lot of folks kind of reminding them that TIF is, there are a lot of deals in cities, whether it's residential or businesses, that could be harmed if they start cutting property taxes again and tie the TIF into it, based on what we heard last week over in Iowa City. So I shared that with HDC this morning. That's going to take the bankers, the developers. It's going to take everybody. It's going to take the alliance, meeting at least for our side that, there are some communities that have used TIF maybe a little more freely than others, which I won't name, but there's been a lot of really good TIF projects across the state, and that's what brings about development. So we'll certainly take a look to see how we can get something done on those parking lots and see if we can't plan something for 27.
So is this my opportunity for sidewalks at the same point then? Okay. So east, we had a big miss, and I'll just own it because I assumed when I saw the ped ramps going in there on East 4th Street that we were doing sidewalk, but we didn't. We did that whole street. And here we did East 3rd, right? So we should have done 4th at that point. And I still would like to revisit that. That's a very busy school, up and down, kids all day. I do have sidewalk in front of my house. People will come off the road, go up on mine and go down. So I know they want the sidewalks. The kids especially go up there. So if that's something we could look at now, well, the ped ramps are in there, part of it's done, just on the one side to at least get the kids off the street. I would like to throw my hat towards that. Knowing I'll be very unpopular on my street, but if we can find a way to fund it, that would be great.
I think your sidewalk goes back to the fact that we had that discussion whether or not to put something into code as to what triggers sidewalk. And I think that we might need to come back to that discussion, because if we pay for 4th, then that's going to set the precedence that we pay for the next and the next and the next. And where do we stop? I could use some paving in my backyard if you got all that extra paving you want to do.
For me, it's a safety issue.
No, I understand exactly, but it really opens Pandora's box when we keep paying for it.
Yeah, I agree. We should probably address that with planning and zoning and when we do those projects, or I don't know if the streets projects and water projects, do they go through planning and
This
zoning?
next one we're looking at is gonna be on Second, so, and there's gonna be a lot of sidewalk infill on that we'll bring to you guys on how you want to do it this time. If that's gonna be an assessment or if there's gonna be a
That's why we need to
City
get
pay.
going quicker
So-
than, sooner than later on.
Because we determined if we're gonna do water main and street rehab, we're gonna start bringing those forward to you guys with sidewalks where we need the infills.
So yeah, we all
replaced.
need to get on the same code with that, and we also need to talk about the sub base again, right? We
Yeah.
need to, I mean, there's some potential and we need to just be out in front of it.
Yeah.
And
I think we were out front with Huxley Heights, we told them that, that was something that was probably gonna take place.
yeah, we need to probably have an actual vote on it and just decide. We've talked about it, we've work sessioned it. It's probably
time for a
time to
vote.
bring
I'd
it
agree
forward,
with that.
whether
Make
it
sure we
passes or
notify the
fails.
public, like we've done that before, we should do that again. It's a hot topic. And then one more, the streets that you're picking, I'm assuming you're picking the ones that have to be done for under, over, but Crestwood, the half off Linwood, like that's pretty rough in some spots too, so. Are we looking at that street at all?
But yeah, but that'd be a couple of years.
I think the big issue with Second Street, the majority of the expense going there is to replace the water main.
Yeah.
It's,
Yeah, there's water main, there's 4 inch, it's getting pretty rough, and we got some old transit main, which is the asbestos concrete in there that we want to get removed and. So. yeah,
Just
that's
keep
what
it on our
kinda-
radar.
That's what's been kind of driving some of the pavement projects is just the water main replacement, so.
Any more comments about the capital improvement plan?
Yeah, I think John started to bring it up, but just for clarification, Dave or Barb. It looked like, and I think you guys said, but the TAP funds, that's the grant funding, I think you were insinuating, which is like 60% of it. And maybe it was Greg who said it. I'd be in favor of both. I think part of why that doesn't get utilized, I recognize my bias living in the northwest side of town, but people don't go that way because it doesn't connect south. So I mean, it's hard to utilize something that is a dead end. I also would love to have the parking lots paved because I think that opens up some opportunities for parks, and I think maybe Heather talked about it with like baseball invitationals and things. Some of those have criteria for having those paved, so I realize we can't pull money out of nowhere, but if there's an opportunity, or maybe asphalt's the way instead of concrete, but I guess I don't know, the 70,000, is there a certain dollar amount that we have to allot to be eligible to use the funds above it? Or how does the funding work for the TAP funds?
the TAP grant was fairly specific. This particular grant didn't cover any of our engineering costs. That's kind of what you'll see. The city shares coming out is to cover the engineering. The TAP grant is covering them. I think it's either 80 or 90% of what the paving and the grading and all that kind of stuff is supposed to be. Rough. I think it's TAP's 80 or 90, isn't it?
Yeah, somewhere
It's in that
neighborhood.
ballpark, but we were told early on that it wouldn't cover any of the engineering, so those were taken out, and that's part of that cost that we're paying as well as our match. It's either a 10 or 20% match of what they've given us for the trail.
Okay, well, yeah, that's what I assumed is
Yeah.
most grants have some match in there, and that's a big chunk of what the funding for that trail is, so we
And
couldn't
those,
reallocate that. even if
right,
we
those,
wanted.
those funds, were in a Trails Capital Project Fund that we just moved that balance into Trails Reserve. So those funds were already there. They're not part of the allocated lost funds for this year and next year.
I thought I had talked to you guys about it, so I thought I understood, but yeah, that clarifies it for me. Excellent, thanks.
Thanks.
Thanks, Jeff. Thanks, everybody. Any more questions? I guess the last comment I have was, this is great for a 1-year plan. I'd love to see in the future longer range plans, 4 or 5 years, so that we can plan for those.
Yeah,
bigger-
this was one of those things that Barb and we found this software kind of late fall and got it ordered. It wasn't super expensive, but it came as a recommendation from a friend of ours, and we got the first year kind of plugged in, but we've asked the departments to start looking out, and now 3, 4, 5 years. So, the next one, when it comes back, we hope to have a little more programming out than just, 26 and a few things for 27. So.
I have one more question. So when you were hearing that about the TIF changing, you thinking that's happening yet this year?
It's something that we're gonna be monitoring on a weekly basis. It's just that it came out that, you know, the state wants to do something with, or reducing property taxes. And then I heard today, I think somebody said that they've kind of maybe shelved, I think maybe Danny Trimble or somebody had said this morning at HTC that she heard maybe they were gonna kind of shelve the property tax itself and start looking at the TIF. And that's something that we heard last week, is that that's something they may take a look at. So we want to be very cognizant. I know Mark Jackson up in Story City had some really good talking points for our group last week over in Iowa City, that, you know, there are certain things that when we're dealing with our legislature, we need to, you know, not talk about the city of Huxley. We need to talk about the community of Huxley. And, you know, the things that we're doing are for our community. And rather than try to educate them, we're trying to inform them. And, you know, the things we want to bring a different spin on, the way maybe cities have talked to their legislators, you know, over the last 30, 40 years, and be a little more proactive. And, you know, and it comes down to that a lot of the amenities and things that people move to a community for are the first things that are going to be cut when property taxes get reduced so far. I know the city of Burlington, a friend of mine's down there, and they've already cut 1.4 million. They've made cuts. They made cuts in their library and their police department and I think their transit, he said, and a couple other things. So
It's good to cut public safety right off the bat. That really helps things.
yeah, well, part of it is the legislature always, you know, most cities will say, you know, well, there goes our police and fire. And the legislature says, nobody's gonna cut police or fire. They cut the other things first. So Burlington had just I think really what theirs was, though, I think they may have had an open position or two, and they just decided not to fill it. So that was their
I was gonna
cut.
say, normally you don't cut it, yeah, just by,
Yeah,
Which
it
is the
was,
same thing as
it was through
cutting it.
attrition, but they referred to it as, you know, basically the force was being downsized, so.
and we
But-
can use TIF for sidewalks, right, at this point, because it's for everybody. So
Mhm.
that's something I want us to think about while we can.
Yeah.
For
TIF has a
funding.
wide range of uses. Can be used for any sort of public infrastructure and then other things. I mean, cities have used them to build city halls and libraries and
Paving parking lots. or,
paving parking lots.
park.
They've done public safety facilities. Coralville built a hotel, you know, so.
We can also, if there are.
It was late. The may have stretched a little bit.
If there are sidewalks in an LMI area, we can use our LMI funds to do those.
Before we move on to any final budgets, is there any more comments on the CIP? Anyone?
I guess our question I would have is, what we talking about, that's something we bring up here. It's gonna be 4 years, obviously, to get.
Thanks, Bart.
I had talked to Dave a little bit about replacing a fire truck that's a 1998. To purchase a fire truck, if you order it today, it's 4 years before you get it. So is that something we start planning on through the CIP, or how do we?
Well, we've actually, over the course of this year and next, I think we're allocating about just under $500,000 to go towards fire equipment.
Mhm.
And I know we've got that meeting scheduled this week,
Yep.
and I'd kind of like to get through that meeting and visit with that gentleman.
Okay,
Because I know that we won't, you know, in the time frame that it would take based on what we're giving you, if council approves that truck, we're gonna have to look for another funding source to kind of
Yep.
tie it in. And that's one of the things I've got some ideas, but we need to talk to our financial advisor and just make sure that we've.
and I just want to put it out there because I didn't know
You just ask
if everybody knew the
avenue.
the
Yeah.
time frame and things like that it takes, so.
It can certainly go in the CIP, doesn't necessarily mean, it'll be a thing that when I run my dashboard, it'll say, you don't have the funding allocated for this. But it's certainly something we can put in as a placeholder for 4 years down the road.
Funding plan for this?
Well, like I said, we've earmarked almost $500,000 for this current year and then next year
And where are we
To go towards-
earmarking that from?
in from local option tax.
And do
There's,
we see it anywhere in any of the budget?
you will see it,
It's right.
you'll
here.
see it in the fire.
It's in the fire equipment
If you
reserve.
look in the fire equipment reserve, you'll see those dollars. I think the only thing Travis has got coming out of, his reserve fund this next year is some bunker gear equipment. There were like 3 sets of bunker gear.
Which we normally budgeted for that annually.
Yeah.
It's $9,000, $10,000 a year, so.
So, yeah.
I think you had 15, wasn't
I
it?
think
Yeah, we
it
had-
put 15
yeah, we
in,
put
so I mean,
15 in.
yeah, if you only spend 9 or 10, that's great. That just leaves that money in that reserve account, but
I think what happened to us, and it happened before, like it goes in the CIP, it comes out of the CIP and then it's budgeted. So I think we're just trying to figure out
Yeah.
land, where does it go and where does it stay?
That was the kind of question I had too. I mean, how do we plan? You talked about, Greg talked about 3-4 years down the road, we gotta plan for that. So that's why I'm asking.
but if council decides that a ladder truck is the way that you want to go, you're talking 1.7 million. So, at a couple 100,000 or $250,000 a year out of local option, it's going to take longer than 4, years to get it to pay for. So I think if we continue to take some dollars out of local option tax, to fund that, knowing if this truck if it's 4 years out, another option, which some cities are doing, they will take that balance and they will, like as our debt service levy comes down, say in 3 or 4 years, we would just do a short-term loan. Basically, you would have a debt service approval for, say, 800,000. Taxes come in, you go to the bank, you borrow 800,000, you write them a check, there's no interest, and you use those proceeds along with the dollars that you've got sitting in the equipment reserve to be able to pay for that truck in that time period, if that's something council wants to do. So
Real quick question on your, since you brought it up, local option tax. Did we take any consideration to what's gonna happen with the city of Huxley this next year with, or from here on out with 210 being down? What that's gonna do for our local option tax? Did we plan a deficit of any or a reduction in what we've seen?
We didn't, simply because the local option tax is gathered all over Story County. And then it's allocated out based on, I believe it's based on the valuations that were at a certain point to the valuations that are now. So it's not just money that's spent in Huxley, it's money that's spent all over Story County.
and I don't think we saw big decrease from last year to this year. I think the numbers have been trending steady or up a little bit, so.
Good question. Yeah. Yeah. It was informative for me too. So thanks for asking that, John. Anyone else on CIP? If not, we'll move on to the final budget for 25-26 and remarks and the revisions.
Excuse me, I think the only revisions that you've got since we had this a couple weeks ago, the CIP has been kind of tied into it, but the pages on water and sewer that you received previously, those were updated when we moved a couple projects around in the public works. We looked to the point had we done everything we were looking to do, we were gonna put water down to what I thought was a little lower than a reserve than I wanted to see. It was gonna be around a little over 400,000, and we've kind of moved some things around to where we'll have a reserve, I think, ending this year or I think in 26 of 726,000. So that's really the only change. I mean, unless Barbara, is there anything else that?
No, those were the only changes, was to move those projects around. And yeah, 762,000 is 62 is what we're projecting for reserve and water.
So the next step with the budget then is bringing forward to a council meeting for approval
Well,
or?
we will, at your meeting next week, we will set our public hearing to adopt the budget on the 22nd of April. So we'll have that set, and then on the 22nd, you'll have your hearing, and then you'll approve your budget, and then we'll get it to the county and the state before April 30th.
We'll also put the CIP on that meeting to approve as well, so we can start doing that every year. As we approve the budget, we'll approve the CIP.
I'd still like to see more done for police and fire in this whole aspect. I think we're playing Russian roulette to just be running with a skeleton crew with police. I just think it's not a good idea.
And once the legislature adjourns this year and we see what, if anything, they're gonna do with property taxes, we'll probably start working on projections for that. Like I said, we've got enough in fiscal year 26 to fund a police officer, but the question is, do you want to fund a police officer for 1 year when there's a probability we may not be able to fund it in 27?
Yeah, and then next year, we'll probably be concerned about what they're gonna do with property tax next year, so we'll kick it down the road another year. I mean, at some point, we gotta quit worrying about the future and do what we need to do with what we have. And if things change in the future, then we make adjustments according to what changed. But to bank the whole future on what may happen, hell, if I ran a business that way, I'd never open the door.
All right, thanks for that update on that, Barb. Anybody have any questions on that? So I don't have anything else to add on that budget. Thanks for helping us identify what the next steps in that process are. I think that's it for tonight. So I need a call for a motion to close the meeting.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Give you a motion for a second.
All right, we're adjourned. Thank you.
All those
Those
in
way.
favor?
Oh, all right,
Aye.
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 I might have closed, I'm thinking.